The Vorrkai Empire had never lost a death arena match, not once, not in 400 years of planetary conquest, not since Grand Overseer Dreth-Ul had personally redesigned the arena to be, quote, absolutely inescapable. He had carved those words into the entrance gate himself. 14 languages. He was thorough like that. So when the captured human soldiers were dragged through the gates, the crowd of 60,000 Vorrkai spectators did what they always did. They laughed, they placed bets, they bought overpriced food from vendors who hovered above the stadium seats on anti-gravity platforms, selling something that smelled like grilled ambition and bad decisions. The Vorrkai looked like what you would get if you took a scorpion, gave it a god complex, and let it design its own military uniform. 8 limbs, exoskeleton the color of burnt copper, and compound eyes that could track 17 moving targets at once. They were fast, they were smart, they had conquered 42 star systems. They had never met a soldier named Dax Forms. Dax stood in the center of the arena floor and did something that immediately made every Vorrkai commentator go quiet. He smiled, not the nervous kind, not the desperate please do not kill me kind. The slow, deliberate, I have already counted the exits kind. Grand Overseer Dreth-Ul watched from his elevated viewing platform, one of his 6 arms holding a goblet of something purple and expensive. They always look confused first, he told his military advisor, Vexaran. Then they look afraid. Then they stop moving. It is very predictable. Vexaran said nothing. Vexaran had been saying nothing more than usual lately. His compound eyes were fixed on the humans below. There were 7 of them. Dax Forms, former sergeant of the 3rd Terran Expeditionary Force, currently covered in arena dust and someone else's dried blood. Next to him stood Petra, the squad's combat engineer, who was already studying the arena walls with the kind of focus most people reserve for final exams. Then there was Bram Solis, the heaviest man on the squad, built like a boulder that had eaten another boulder. Beside him, Una Farrow, the medic, who had somehow kept her belt kit through capture, which either meant the Vorrkai were careless or she was frighteningly good at hiding things. Probably both. The remaining 3 were Wick, Tool, and a soldier. Everyone called Rabbit because he had once outrun a military hovercraft on foot for 6 blocks, and nobody had ever really gotten over it. 7 humans, no weapons, no armor, just whatever they had managed to carry in their pockets, which the Vorrkai had not bothered checking, because what could soft-bodied primates possibly hide that would matter inside a fortified death arena built to destroy entire squads of trained soldiers? The gate on the far side of the arena opened. What came out was called a Greth-Maul. It was the Vorrkai's favorite execution animal, roughly the size of a military transport truck, with 6 legs, a hide that deflected, standard plasma rounds, and a jaw structure capable of biting through reinforced steel. The crowd roared. The Greth-Maul roared louder. It was a very loud morning overall. Dax did not move. Petra knelt down and pressed her palm flat against the arena floor. She looked up at Dax and held up 3 fingers. Dax nodded once. Vexaran leaned slightly forward. Overseer, they are not running. They will, Dreth-Ul said, waving his goblet dismissively. Give it a moment. The animal is building speed. The Greth-Maul was indeed building speed. 100 meters, 80, 60. Its footsteps sent visible vibrations through the arena floor. Petra pressed something small and silver into the ground. Something she had kept tucked in the hollow lining of her boot, sealed in a waterproof casing through 3 days of captivity. Because Petra was a combat engineer, and combat engineers do not go anywhere without at least one shaped charge. Even to prison. Especially to prison. The detonation was not large. It did not need to be. It was placed at the exact stress fracture point in the arena's drainage grate, the one architectural weakness in an otherwise impeccable design. The floor beneath the Greth-Maul's forward legs gave way. 6 tons of apex predator dropped straight down into the arena's underground drainage channel with a sound that could only be described as spectacular. 60,000 Vorrkai went completely silent. Dreth-Ul's goblet slipped from his grip. Dax looked up at the viewing platform, directly at the Grand Overseer, and he smiled again. "They are not confused," Vex'auran said quietly. "They are not afraid." Dreth-Ul stared down at the 7 humans, who were now moving with calm, deliberate purpose toward the western wall. Then, "What?" the Grand Overseer said slowly. "Are they?" Vex'auran watched Dax crack his knuckles, prepared. Dreth-Ul had a protocol for everything. Arena breach, Protocol 7. Spectator riot, Protocol 12. Unexpected weather interference, Protocol 3, Subsection B. He had written them himself. Laminated copies existed in every control room across the Empire. He was, by any reasonable measure, a very organized conqueror. There was no protocol for this. 7 unarmed humans had just dropped his most expensive execution animal into a drainage ditch, using what his lead engineer would later confirm was a charge smaller than his fist. The Greth-Maul was alive, trapped, and extremely unhappy about both. Its roaring echoed up through the arena floor like a reminder that the afternoon had gone completely sideways. Dreth-Ul turned to his security commander, a broad-shouldered Vorrkai named Dreth-Ul, and said the words no Grand Overseer had ever said inside this building. "Release the secondary unit." Dreth-Ul hesitated. "Overseer, the secondary unit has never been used in a live arena event." "I am aware. It took 12 handlers to move it into position." "I am also aware. 2 of those handlers needed medical attention afterward." Dreth-Ul looked at him. "Dreth-Ul. Releasing the secondary unit, sir." Below, Dax was not waiting around to find out what came next. He had already moved the squad to the western wall, where Petra was running her fingers along the seam between 2 massive stone panels. Bram Solis stood behind her like a very motivated wall. Unifaro was checking Wick's shoulder, which had been dislocated during capture and had been quietly relocated during the first arena walk without anyone noticing, because Una worked fast and Wick had a very high pain threshold, and they had both decided that showing weakness in front of 60,000 aliens was simply not on the schedule. "There," Petra said, tapping a panel joint. "Maintenance access, sealed from the outside, but the hinge mechanism is on our side of the wall." "Can you open it?" Dax asked. Petra gave him a look. The kind of look that said, "I just dropped a 6-ton predator into a hole with a boot charge. Please do not insult me." 30 seconds, she said. Tool was watching the far gate. "Whatever is behind that door is big," he said. "The floor is shaking and the gate hasn't opened yet." Rabbit looked at the gate, then at Tool, then back at the gate. "How big?" "The kind of big where I think we should be somewhere else very soon." Petra worked fast. Una handed her a thin metal strip from inside her belt kit, the kind used for splinting fractures, and Petra used it to pop the interior latch with the precision of someone who had broken into more secured locations than she had ever officially reported. The panel groaned, shifted, opened 2 feet inward. The far gate exploded off its hinges. What came through was not given an official name in the Vorrkai species catalog, because frankly, naming it felt like acknowledging it existed in polite company. It was called, informally among arena staff, as the Hollow. It stood 9 feet tall, moved on 4 legs that bent the wrong direction, had no visible eyes, and located prey through ground vibration and thermal signature. Its hide was not just plasma-resistant. It absorbed energy. Every weapon fired at it simply fed it. The Vorrkai had captured it from a dead world at the edge of mapped space, and had kept it alive out of a combination of scientific curiosity and very poor judgment. The crowd, which had been silent, now made a noise that suggested 60,000 beings were reconsidering their afternoon plans. Dax looked at the Hollow, then at the open panel behind him, then at his squad. "Yuna," he said very calmly. "Your kit. Do you have a thermal patch?" Yuna reached into her belt without blinking. "2. Give one to Bram." Bram took it without question. Dax took the other. He turned back toward the hollow, which was tracking the vibration of 60,000 shifting feet in the stands and had not yet locked onto the squad. "Here is what we are going to do," Dax said. "Bram and I are going to run left. The hollow tracks heat and vibration. We are going to give it a very specific direction to look. The rest of you are going through that panel. You are going to find the maintenance corridor, follow it north, and find the power relay junction that every arena this size is legally required to have within 200 meters of the floor level, because even the Vorrkai have building codes." Rabbit stared at him. "How do you know they have building codes?" "Because Petra read their conquest documentation during the prisoner transport and briefed me for 40 minutes while pretending to sleep." Petra did not deny this. The hollow's head swung toward them. It had locked on. "Go," Dax said. Bram and Dax bolted left, slapping the thermal patches against the far wall as they ran, peeling them off and pressing them against stone to leave false heat signatures, laying a trail that curved away from the panel. The hollow followed the warmth like a nightmare, reading directions. It moved fast, terrifyingly fast, but it was following the wrong story. The rest of the squad slipped through the panel. Dreth-Ul watched all of this from above with the expression of a being whose entire worldview was quietly being reconstructed against his will. He had conquered 42 star systems. He had never once seen something like this. 7 prisoners, no weapons, no armor, no rescue coming, and they were winning. "Vex Oran," he said slowly. "Yes, Overseer. If they escape." "They will escape, Overseer." Dreth-Ul was quiet for a long moment. Below, Dax and Bram had looped back and were sliding through the panel just as the hollow reached the dead end of thermal patches and stood motionless against the arena wall, confused in the way only a perfect predator can be confused. Which is to say, very dangerously. "Send a message," Dreth-Ul said finally, "to High Command." What should the message say? The Grand Overseer watched the panel close behind the last human. He set down his empty goblet. He looked at the arena, his 400-year-old undefeated arena, now containing 1 trapped monster, 1 furious drainage-bound predator, and 0 prisoners. "Tell them," Dreth-Ul said, "that we need to reclassify humans." Vexeron's stylus hovered. From what classification to what classification? Dreth-Ul turned away from the window. "From prey," he said quietly, "to problem."